meeting will please come to order. Shall we have another invocation, do you think? I think we should.
Let's do it.
All right.
Amen. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come again in service of this great city of Lancaster. I ask that you continue to bless all the committee members here. I ask that you bless our staff, our city police, all the people that help make this thing go around and do well, God. I ask that you cover us and keep us. May we use great wisdom and your knowledge to lead this city into the future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Member, the roll call, please.
Chair Bose,
Here.
Committee Member Burden,
Present.
Committee Member Derryberry,
Present.
Committee Member Tepe is absent, and Committee Member Yeager. Here. We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Public business from the floor. I don't see any public, but if there was some, we would be happy to tell them. They can talk to us when we call upon them. Maybe some public will show up before we get done. So we have consent calendar, which is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of April 10th, 2025.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. No opposed, the motion passes. 4-0 with one absent. New business.
Yes, good evening. Tonight before you, we're going to call it a three-part presentation led by City Manager Trolise Niebla, who's going to talk about the achievements that we had with the measure, funds from the measure over the last year. And then she's going to shift the presentation to our illustrious Police Chief, Rod Armelin. And then I will close to talk about this year's budget plan and the actual project list associated with both Measures LC and Measure YM. So with that, I introduce
Mr. Niebla.
Mr. Niebla.
Well,
Have at it.
Thank you for having us today, and good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and committee members. George stole my thunder with his beautiful, wonderful introduction tonight. I first wanted to take time to thank this board. I think this is 4 years of oversight of what was once Measure LC, now it's Measure LC and YM, thanks to the voters last November. So thank you for your hard work. As you'll see as we go through this presentation, there's been a lot that we've been able to accomplish through these sales tax measures in making our community a better place, a more fiscally responsible place, and just a great place to do business. The other thing I wanted to do, because this was all part of the bigger budget, is just take a moment to really thank our staff. We had our directors, our assistant directors, a lot of our analysts, and just a lot of finance staff that poured into this budget, that cranked on the numbers. We went back and forth, all leading to this very healthy budget with a good reserve in it. So wanted to take the time to thank staff on that. So let's start with the punchline. We've got a $282 million-ish budget in total. Of that, $139 million is our general fund. That is the green bucket, otherwise known as the money that has no strings attached. We don't have to, we have to report through the audit, but we don't have to worry about special rules or requirements in order to spend that money. So that's our goal, is to try to get as much money we can in that green bucket so we can offer great programs and great services to our residents. We also have a $48 million reserve. Our reserve policy is about 40% of that general fund. I would put that up against any local agency in the state. I think when you look at what we've done here over the last 15 years through our fiscally conservative council in really being responsible with their budget approach, creating new innovative ways like Lancaster Energy and now FPH2, our hydrogen utility, in order to create revenue. And then also creating just a very business-friendly environment where it's really easy to move development projects and bring in new businesses to generate revenue, to make sure that we have the funds we need to support our community. So hats off to our council over the last 15 years for really making that happen. And actually over the weekend, I was reading an article in Santa Clarita's paper, The Signal, and I was surprised. So their total budget is like $350 million, and they're a very fiscally conservative, healthy city, and their reserve is $26 million. So you look at, compare kind of where we're at, we're doing pretty well up here in the Antelope Valley and in the city of Lancaster. With that, let's talk about our wins. So through this sales tax measure the last 4 years, we've been able to accomplish some pretty big things. The first picture you see there is of our Paris Convention Center, or our MARC facility, where we're building 3 buildings, 140,000 square foot event center, a 20,000 square foot auditorium, EO, emergency operations center, and then the 7,500 square foot community kitchen. And we were just over there for a meeting, an hour or two ago, and you can go out and you can see the steel now going up there at the fair, and it gives you some perspective on how large that facility really is and what it's going to be able to do. If you've all been in events in the other buildings in the front, the Van Dam and the Hunter Pavilion, 4 of those will fit into this building. So it's enormous. So just bringing that community resilience, that's what the sales tax measure allowed us to do. The other one is the AV Alta soccer stadium. So we recently opened that 3 months ago. We've had several home games there. They're averaging about 4,500 people per game. They've sold, I think, 2 of the games out, which is 5,400. And again, I'll remind you, that was a $17 million project to convert it from a baseball stadium to a soccer stadium. And that soccer team is alive and well. They've sold, I think the last I checked, they sold over $500,000 in merchandise, and they've broken all of the league's records for that. They said a lot of the teams have been around multiple years and haven't sold that much stuff. So it's really becoming a part of our fabric here in the AV. Even you'll go around, you'll be over in Palmdale, and you'll see the green and the shield logo, and they've done a good job at coming in and being part of the city. The other project, while not funded out of these tax measures specifically, there's some Measure R and transportation money, it's worth highlighting just because of what it's going to do for this city. You look here, this is a picture of J8 and 20th Street West, where you can see the landscaping up there and that poppy. That's what our entire corridor is going to look like when we're all done with all of the interchanges. So Avenue J is under construction now. That's what you're seeing here. This year, we're going to start K, likely on the back end of this year, though. I think it goes out to bid February, March of next year. So K will be next. It'll pave that bad section of road from 10th to 20th, and it'll redo all the landscaping to look like this, and then redo the off-ramp so you don't get that back up there where people almost get rear-ended all the time on the 14 freeway. After we do K, we go M, L, and G. So that whole corridor is going to look like this. So when you show up to Antelope Valley, you know you're here. When you're in Lancaster, you know you're here. And then the last one is the auto mall signs. That was funded by the tax measure. Those were opened, I believe, this past fall. They look beautiful, and we're looking to doing more improvements over there to our Antelope Valley Mall and hopefully attracting more dealers there so that location continues to prosper. Other major projects that we have are the $4.9 million acquisition of the old Desert Christian High School. We're going to be bringing a lot of youth programming there. There's 26 classrooms, there's sports court. The whole goal there is to program it out and really keep kids busy, because the important thing here is the busier we keep kids in positive things, they don't have time to do the other things they shouldn't be doing. So that's the whole point of this center here. We have lots of public art going in, and there'll be more in this year's budget. This shows 2 of my favorite pieces from this year, which is the top is the fire station over at 40th and Lancaster Boulevard. That top, what is that, the left corner? And then the lower right corner is actually on the side of our chief of police building, the police station there. Both of those pieces, same artist, and he's just phenomenal. And those were done They actually involved the community. You came out, you got to paint your color, and then at the end of it all, he comes in and touches it all up and makes it look good. So really involved the whole community. Looking forward to more of that. And then our parks programs, we've been on this mission the last 3-4 years where we've been remodeling all of our parks. And we are going to continue to do that. This past year, we finished, I believe this is Raleigh, Duntley, and Mariposa. Next year, we're going on to 2 more, but it's just been a real tremendous thing for all of our community members to be able to go out and have all these new amenities at the parks and have just nice parks to recreate at. And then our events, we continue to do our wonderful events. This past year, we moved the Haunt at the Hangar over to the soccer stadium or the soccer center on the east side at 30th East and Avenue L. I think we had around 6,500 people there, so it was a success. We did Poppy Festival. While it wasn't as well attended as it was the year prior, but that was because of the weather. It still had good attendance, and we still had a record number of animals for the livestock auction, and we're really able to engage a lot of the high schools and through that bring more animals to that. So looking forward to better weather next year and bigger attendance again. And then we have our annual Fields of Draft, and then Magical Boulevard Christmas, which brought out, I think, 15,000-ish to the Boulevard. And then shameless plug, the next event is June 28th on the Boulevard, and we're going to be having a concert. And remind me of the artist. Yes, thank you. Gym Class Heroes, you got it. So mark your calendar and be there. It'll be a fun event. And then the drone show. If you weren't there last year for the drone show, it's pretty awesome. Public Works, so one of the pillars of the tax measure when we first built it was really this community beautification. So we, last year in the budget, we put in to bring in-house illegal dumping cleanup and graffiti. So you can see the difference in the numbers from year over year where we were able to go out to and handle, quadruple the number of illegal dumping requests and significantly go up on the amount of graffiti that we cleaned up. We almost cleaned up double the graffiti. In this year's budget, we have 4 more staff maintenance workers that we're actually adding to this crew, so we'll continue to be able to be more proactive rather than reactive on this. And then CityBot. So we actually, and there'll be a little video here that'll walk through it, but this past year, we built out a bot that you go onto our website now. You can go into Ask Andy, you ask him, hey, I would like to get a building permit, and he'll actually in real time have a conversation with you. You know, which type of permit would you like to have? And you can respond back. And this next year, what we'll be doing is doing the same for a phone bot. So when you call the city, it'll sound like a real person, and it'll sound like you're having a real conversation because I called Denver, the city of Denver, who already has it. You get on the line, and it's Ashley, and Ashley talks to you, and you think it's a real person, and it's not. So these bots now have gotten really good, and this is the bot that we have so far. And then the last thing I think I'll touch on, and then I'll turn it over to Rod, is PD. So we've done a lot to bolster public safety in this community, and we've really built out the Lancaster Police Department so far. That top picture you see there is our homeless team. Last year we had 1 homeless team, and we put 2 more into the budget, and so we're up to 3 homeless teams now. They cleaned up over 550 tons of debris out of these encampments, and we're looking at the different successes that they've had in the community. So if you go to, for example, Division and Avenue I, where the Denny's is at, they had a systemic problem there of homeless people back there camping in tents and really bothering the patrons of Denny's. Through really proactive enforcement, they're not there anymore. We fenced off some of the public parking back there, but we really hit that area a lot, and now they're no longer there. So we're looking forward to additional successes like that throughout the community with these 3 teams. The other thing is that the Supreme Court gave us a gift about this time last year where they overturned some of the rulings that had happened up in other states that we really were telling us how we needed to handle these people that were illegally camping. So we were able to last year update our camping ordinances and our critical infrastructure ordinances so that those teams and our police chiefs teams have more tools in their tool belt to go out and combat what's going on out there. So looking forward to more successes along that front this next year. We opened the brand new station. It has the state-of-the-art training center in there. If you guys haven't had an opportunity to go over there and tour it, you should. It's fun. You can go, they'll put you through the simulator and you can test out how good you really are at shooting a gun and trying to get the criminal. We swore in our first 6 officers. We've implemented new technologies like ShotSpotter, Flock, Verkada, the drones. It all feeds into our Intelligent Crime Center. I had the opportunity to go over there, I don't know, a couple weeks back and actually watch while the sheriff was on the line with us, and we were giving him information on where we saw this, what was it, a Honda Accord. I think it was like a red Honda Accord, and they're on there using all of our technology. And yes, that car was here, here, and here at these different times. And so based on that, they find the registered owner and they go make the arrest within a matter of hours. It's pretty cool to see in real time. Because of that, we have a 98% solve rate on our homicides. If you look at the rest of the county, it's 42%. So the technology works, it works well, and we solve crimes here in the city of Lancaster. And then we've also procured our 8 motors with the Measure YM money. So we have 8 motorcycles, all decaled up, ready to start traffic enforcement. They're over at our yard. We will be swearing in our first batch of motor officers on July 9th. They actually start with us July 8th. So be on the lookout because we will be out there and doing enforcement. So don't speed, pass people in the bike lanes anymore, ride your mini bikes, all the stuff that has become kind of systemic here. That will be a thing of the past, hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months. With that, I'll turn it over to Rod, and he'll hit on a little bit more about our PD department and what they got going on.
Thank you.
Good
So do we
afternoon.
get out of jail free cards or anything?
Actually, that was my first line. I'm going to give you all a little
The
sticker to put
answer is
on.
no.
No, I'm just kidding. None of you guys speed. I know this. I've seen you drive, so we're good. All right, well, hey, you know what? There is a bunch going on, and Trolley's really touched on quite a bit of it, but I do want to add a bit more for you. So we, as he mentioned, we're swearing in our first 3 motor officers. We actually are processing 8 right now, and because we, and by the way, also I want to mention that within our first 6 officers, we managed to find 2 outstanding individuals and promoted them to sergeant. So we have our first 2 sergeants, and we're going to be replacing them with some of these other hires that we're going through. We're actually doing a hiring event this Saturday, and because we want to get experienced officers, that event is set up so that we're only allowing in current sworn police officers to attend. And they're calling and they want to see us because they're paying attention to what we're doing here in Lancaster. And I have to say, and I may have told you guys before, it's been 36 years of doing this. I'm going to say, I don't know, 15 different cities I've worked with. Never a city like this, never a city, and that includes you folks up there and all our commissions, never a city that works together and that safety is absolutely a top priority. The support I get is amazing, so very proud to be here. Also want to pass on that we've hired our dispatchers. Trolley's mentioned the increase in our homeless team, and I want to add 450 operations these guys did over the past fiscal. And there were quite a few success stories there where they were able to take those areas and just stop the homeless encampment problem there altogether. And with those successes come the success of getting people off the street, because we have our core team within our department, the outreach team basically that works with them and gets people a place. We had quite a few successes with those teams going out and getting folks off the street and into housing. So Trolley's mentioned our vehicles. We've got 7 marked cars. We actually purchased an unmarked car now so that we can do some surveillance. We're looking at surveillance vehicles and additional cameras that we can use to aid us in combating crime. Those motorcycles that we got, state-of-the-art, brand new 2024 BMW motorcycles. We're putting our officers on the best and safest vehicle we can get them on. And to give you a bit on our technologies, our dispatch system is up and running. I mentioned a moment ago we hired our dispatchers. They're actually training on the system right now. Our radio system is in place. We went with the LA RICS. That's LA Regional Intercommunication system, and that's a countywide system that all the other police agencies are pretty much tied into. We tested this thing the other day. We had an officer drive all the way out to Industry and talk to us, and it was clear as day. So it's a great system. Our Verkada cameras, the cameras around the city, we've got about 360. We're looking at putting another 200 this coming year. And these cameras are fantastic. They have AI in them. They allow us to use license plate recognition as well, so we can put wanted vehicles in there. They give us the ability to, if there's a wanted individual or somebody we're looking for, we can use some systems to try and see if that person's been past one of our cameras. So, and then the shot spotter system, phenomenal. We didn't have, so I can't give you the full year stats because we didn't have it in, last year it started in March. But what I wanted to tell you is, because of that system, we've seen a significant decrease in our number of shootings. So since I don't have the entire year, and we don't have our entire year here, what I did is I went back and I looked at May through today. And basically in 2024, when this thing started, there were 165 times someone had fired a gun inside our city. We're down to 108 this year so far. And we're looking really good this month. So we think that trend is going to continue. The more that this system gets officers there quickly and people learn about it, the more individuals are realizing, not in this city. I cannot fire weapons in this city. And then our drone technology, state of the art. We have a mobile drone system, and I think I started telling you about this last year. This system is incredible, and as you may know, with the winds, it's very difficult to get air support up here. With our mobile drone system, we've flown over 150 missions with that. Now, I want you to understand, some of that includes like checking critical infrastructure or doing 3D mapping. That drone can actually go to a traffic collision and get over it and give a 3D image of the actual collision, which is essential when you're investigating them. It can do that in about 30 minutes. The old system and the system that our deputies use usually takes about 2 to 3 hours to get it done. So phenomenal, but the drone's been used by homicide, the marshals, gang investigators, LAPD. Tons of folks are coming up, and when they have issues in our city, they are asking for our drone support. And then we're bringing drone as a first responder, and this is phenomenal. So we're positioning drones at critical locations around the city. These drones will be able to deploy automatically off of shot spotter hits, off of the flock cameras, which read the license plates and let us know when a wanted vehicle is in the area. They can deploy automatically off of those. We're even working on programming those so that if an officer is in trouble and he hits his emergency button on his radio or his body-worn camera, the drone will lift off and go to where that officer is at. So this DFR program, and of course it can be deployed by deputies or us on a regular call for service. So we're really excited about this system, and it is on the way. And then lastly, I just wanted to tell you about our Intelligence Crime Center. This is probably the best thing going for us right now. We are directly helping solve crimes. And all those systems you talked about, we talked about, are fed into that Intelligence Crime Center. And our intelligence folks inside of there are tied into the national network, and they do a phenomenal job finding individuals and finding vehicles. Just this year alone, they have assisted, and when I say assisted, helped solve 74 cases. And these cases are primarily of the violent nature. That includes 3 homicides that they worked on. But it's a phenomenal system, and there isn't anything else like this in all of North County. So a lot of good things happening. We're excited about what's ahead, and we invite you to come and visit anytime you like. Just give me a call. We'll take you any day of the week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How you gonna
Mr.
follow up with
Harris.
that, George?
I'll flip his slides. That's, so we did talk about the digital shield, which is all encompassing of the community, or the incident command or the intelligence command center, the training facilities, the technology that we're using for the vehicles, the drone. We talked a lot about the drone. I do want to talk a little bit about the staffing that we do have at the police department. I think every year I always give you the incremental change that's being authorized with that new budget. And sometimes we've added 1 position, 2 positions, maybe 4 positions. And this last year we added 8. But I think it's important to note that what is the entire department? So in this budget that's being covered with both Measure LC, YM, it's a total of 46 total FTEs in that police department right now. So I know we only really just usually talk about the 6 that have been sworn in. Of course, we talk about the chief and the assistant chief, but there's 46 folks that are in that building doing work every day. That includes the 6 original, the 2 sergeants that the chief talked about, and then the 7 motorcycle officers that are going to be hired here shortly. And then a total of 29 folks that work in the department that are non-sworn, that are doing all those. It's the homeless teams, it's the cleanup, it's all the technicians, LETs that we actually on lend to the sheriff's department on our behalf, that we pay to make sure that they have report writers in their ranks to help them do what they need to do to keep their officers on the street. There's quite a bit of other technology that we're utilizing in the community preservation world as well. So code enforcement is using two new systems that are being added this year. One, Noise Net is the name of the system, and actually detects dog or nuisance type. So whenever a resident is complaining about their neighbor's dog and they need proof, or they need us to investigate to help them in their whatever their case against their neighbor, we now will have technology that can identify the type of dog, the octave of the dog, and so that technology is out there. It's available. It's AI based, and it's going to help them with that. And then City Detect is a code enforcement tool that's it's a series of cameras that are going to be on a variety of vehicles in our fleet that are traveling through neighborhoods and looking for code violations, reporting that back through a series of images that we'll have somebody review and authorize a ticket to be created for an actual code officer to get out there. So the idea is that it's going on those streets that our code officers wouldn't typically go, and we have better coverage. Ideally, right now it's going to be on the parking enforcement vehicles, but when we take over street sweeping, we're going to put it on street sweepers so that we know it's going to actually hit every single street in the community. So let's talk about the actual measures. When we met last, we did talk about what the 4 buckets of priority for the new funding, and we'll go back through them, but I just wanted to highlight real quick. The 2 measures total add up to $43.6 million. They're about $21.8 million apiece. So that represents 31% of the total general fund. And so when you add what we get in regular sales tax, which is Bradley Bird sales tax, that if we had no measures, our sales tax that we receive from the state is $27 million. So when you add those 2 together, $70 million that we get at the register. Those transactions representing $70 million, and that's not including what is passed on to us through the measures that the county have placed on that same sales tax transaction. So those transactions are significant in this community. The $70 million, when you add up the regular sales tax, Measure LC, Measure YM, all transactions that are happening when you go to the register and have that taxable transaction, that represents 50% of our general fund. And so when we're seeing like transactions that are happening at Toyota, 50% of that transaction of those taxes collected are coming right back here to the community, which is, it's a good message to deliver even to those customers as well. Going back through the 4 buckets, the police department, the beautification, child care, youth development, and then economic reinvestment. So when the police department, he's had his dog and pony show. We're gonna move on to some of the other stuff, but the police department is in action. They are doing everything that we expected them to do. And the second we get those motor cops on the street, you're gonna start to see real safety results when quite frankly, we get people to slow down, and we've all seen it. How many times did you wish you were an officer and you could pull somebody over? Like, it happens daily. Blowing through past us in the bike lane and blowing through stop signs. You get out to the desert, people will look at the road as they're approaching and will hit that intersection at 70 miles an hour, not even trying to touch the brake at a stop sign. It's crazy. So right now, we need to get these guys out there and get them writing tickets, and and they will save lives. That's money invested that's going to result in real life saving. Traffic enforcement we talked about, and these are all the things that fall underneath the police department. Beautification, the landscape maintenance districts are getting some general fund support this year, as well as what's typically funded by gas tax. That gas tax operation is actually getting a subsidy from the general fund this year as well to keep the activity up. Illegal dumping and graffiti, as Trelease talked, we've added a couple more teams with this funding, and the public art, which is one that we're trickling in as we can. It's a priority, but sometimes it's not as high a priority as everything else, but it's still being funded. Economic reinvestment. So the Shop More Lancaster gift card program, in this particular budget is $900,000 for that. I'm sorry, $700,000 for that program. That's not an insignificant amount, and that is actually added to the funding that existed in the current fiscal year. So it's a little bit over, just I think $900,000 for both. No, I'm sorry, $400,000 was originally funded, an additional $7. So it's $1.1 million going into that program over the course of the 2 years. The Paris Operations Center, like Trelease mentioned, we're having meetings every other week, and with a new coalition that represents the City of Palmdale, City of Lancaster, the high school district, and the fair. And so we've been working together every 2 weeks to come up with what's going to be ultimately the business plan for the Paris Center. We think it's going to be, and I don't know if I can use this term yet, but it's going to be a new entertainment regional hub. We just like hub, but I don't know if legally we have the right to use it because it's been copyrighted. But we expect that new facility to be a regional hub for entertainment, for commerce, for training and education, and ultimately the original reason and purpose is the evacuation center that it's going to serve as. And then looking at economic development based on AI technology to try to figure out how we can utilize source data from where people are shopping, where they're gravitating to in town, to source and locate new business opportunities in the community. In terms of youth development, we talked about the Midtown Education Center. So the $4.9 million that we spent to purchase the old high school, there's been an additional $1.5 million in this year added to actually get the technology set up in the facility, add the new equipment that we need to be able to facilitate new programming in the facility. And so that's included. The third grade reading proficiency program, there's been $350,000 invested for that. And then the enhanced farmers market is something that's still being developed, but that's in the budget as well. So this is why we're all here. The list of Measure LCYM items that's going to be funded. And so, did you guys have a version, right? Okay. Well, I'll go through it. The idea here, as we discuss every year, is that we can't be real particular as to what's being funded here, but these are those things that we would not be able to do if we didn't have the funding for Measure LCYM. So the Public Safety Lancaster Police Department, of course, number one ticket item there. $11.4 million funded last year and the prior year, and an additional $4.4 million funded this year as a result of having the new revenue. Paris Convention Center, we have historically spent the $3 million every year towards that effort. The debt service on that facility is $3.5 million this year. It goes up to $4.1 million next year, and that'll be the payment on that debt service for the remainder of the 27 years remaining for the repayment. LPAC improvements, last year, $1.9 million. That's kind of what was funded. Additional funding has been added this year with the use of Measure YM for an additional $221,000. The community center operations has been up and running now for 3 years. When we first opened, it was $877,000 about. That's how much it is this year, with an additional $116,000 that's being loaded in as a result of having Measure YM. Citywide special events, that whole effort, when you add up all of the special events, totals about $1.5 million this year. 1.2 coming from the original funding, the additional 250 coming from the new funding. There's some support staff funding in there as well. The illegal dumping, the $700,000 was added this year to add the additional teams. The street, road, and maintenance support, when we talked about the gas tax support, that's $2 million from the general fund supporting our gas tax operations for street enhancement and maintenance. There's citywide technology improvements, so a lot of what's happening outside of the police department, we have some funding requirements. So the city bot that we talked about, the code enforcement activity with the city detect that we discussed, all that technology is expensive to purchase initially and then have to maintain, but then there's implementation costs in there as well. That totals $2.8 million citywide in this budget. Code enforcement has increased $2.4 million over last year, and that's because we've now expanded code enforcement to include contract services. So we have our own in-house code enforcement, plus we have some contract staff that's actually helping us. And as things improve, that level of the service can be expanded and contracted as needed. So we went with contract, we stayed with contract for that purpose, and I think that we'll be evaluating those costs over time. But in general, we're seeing a significant increase in the amount of codes that are code enforcement tickets as well as remedies. Mid-City Community Center, we did talk about that. The Landscape Maintenance District, there's a $1.4 million support there. The new Aquatic Center, which I know we didn't spend a whole heck of a lot of time talking about, but in a partnership between the city of Lancaster and Union High School District, we're going to be building a planned aquatic center on Avenue 10th Avenue West and across from Steve Owens Park. And so the facility, as it's being scoped now and designed, I don't want to give out a lot of square footage information until we start getting costs. So depending on the final cost, it's planned to be an aquatic center that consists of 4 swimming pools, enclosed, removable roof, seating for special events, as well as some classroom activities there for aquatic activities. Currently discussing, it's a true contract partnership with the school district, and we're working on other contract partners to help reduce the cost for the city. But the idea and the intent is for us to utilize YM funds to finance our half of the facility, and then as other partners come in later, they would help in making those annual debt service payments. Shop More Local program, as we talked about, the $900,000. I think that just corrected my answer from earlier. That is $900,000 that's being pumped into there for the vehicle purchase program. The youth development program that we talked about, and then the district drainage maintenance district support at $300,000. That's about $1 million operation. I'm sorry, it's a multiple $1 million operation, but it needed additional support from the general fund this year. So that brings to the grand total of 20. That's how we spread the $21.8 million in both of those revenue sources. Next steps, workshop presentation. The council received a presentation last week on Tuesday. Today, we were meeting with the group of the Oversight Committee, as you are. And then on 24th, next Tuesday, we'll go for final adoption. And then the fiscal year begins July 1st. We intend on bringing something back to this committee in the October timeframe, as we were able to kind of wrap up how funds were spent at the close of the fiscal year, and then really start talking about if there's any adjustments being needed and really tracking the revenue to make sure it's coming in as expected. And that's what you should expect in that next report from us. And then we'll get into, and then the next time we'll meet would be the mid-year adjustment as we review kind of the first 6 months of activity and what we have planned for the future. So I'm available to answer any questions if you have them.
I have one. In regards to like the youth programming at both the Midtown Education Center and just in general, how does the city typically receive inquiries for youth programming? Like, if somebody had a program that they felt would benefit the kids in the city, how would they go about getting that information, and who do they go through to kind of get that on?
That's a conversation that's generally started with Sonia Patterson, the Parks and Recs director. To have that conversation with her first, she generally will have the conversation with her team and see, and start talking feasibility. And then usually that ends up as a request for Trelise and I to figure out how to fund it. And it goes from there. But usually that's who you want to run those ideas from, or recommend that people go to her and get a first glance at the concept.
another thing is just not necessarily a question, but a comment. I just want to say in terms of you, Rod, and the police department, like, you guys do a really good job of just being present in the community, and I think that's important. You know, like I see you everywhere, you see me everywhere, and I'm thankful that you guys are, you know, reachable. You know, it's not like this presence where it feels like the community is unsafe. You guys are always blending in with the community everywhere we go, and I just want to say I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So George, last meeting we were at, you gave us kind of the breakdown on, you know, the general tax structure that of however many dozens and dozens of cities, and how the sales tax measures that we have here, in comparison to other ways the city can tax us, overall is treating us far better than these other cities are to some of their citizens. Now, so the question I always get in the community, people know I'm involved with the city, is when does it end? And so it's a question I don't have the answer to. So is this the sales tax measures here something we're looking at continuing in perpetuity, or does it end?
Well, first let's talk about what was actually approved. And so what was actually approved in November was the addition of a 1.25 measure on top of the 0.75 measure that we had before. And the council took the decision, or made the decision, to only implement that first 0.75 of the total 1.25 that was approved. And so in January 28, 0.25 will trigger. In January 29, 0.25 will trigger. And so this measure itself, this action as has been approved, has not been fully implemented. And so if we're going to ask the question of where and when does it end, at least in January 29 is where you'll see the full implementation of this measure. Yeah, I believe it's up to the community, you know, to determine if anything is approved beyond then. In talking to the vice mayor, he knew he only had so many bites at this apple, right? And so going in with this one, I think early on, we didn't even know that our local assembly member had that special language put in on behalf of us, Victorville and Palmdale, to give us that additional 1%. Now, knowing that, I don't foresee us really needing a lot more beyond the 29 trigger. And then, quite frankly, council still has the option to consider whether or not we need those last two triggers. And that they have full discretion on whether or not we pull those back. Right now, as it stands, they are, as far as we are concerned, and CDTFA, the state, they are going to trigger those on those dates, as I mentioned. But can council take action to reverse them? Yes, they can. Is there any intent to levy like a utility users tax or some of these other taxes? We have not heard anything like that. There are some cities that, and I hate to bring them up, but I think they're the worst example in LA County, and that is the city of Santa Monica, and they tax everything. So if you could try to drive through, I think you're very, very lucky if you can manage to drive through the city of Santa Monica without getting taxed on something. You're doing pretty well. You better drive very fast. You better have one of those fast Toyotas that Jeff sells, because they are going to get you if you're driving through Santa Monica. That is not us. Here we do have, and it keeps being reported that we're the highest sales tax, but if you look at the analysis that I gave you in that last meeting, yes, we are. But what we did was in the new legislation proposed by Juan Carrillo, other people are going to do. Matter of fact, I sit on the Revenue and Taxation Committee with the League of Cities, representing all the finance directors in the area or in the state. And we had a meeting, our very first policy committee. They were like, "What can we do to raise revenue?" And I said, "Well, you could talk to your local assembly member and have them pass a bill on your behalf, and then you take it to your people and get it approved." And about 4 or 5 of them were nodding their heads. I was like, "Yeah, can you do it soon? Because I don't want to be the highest forever in Lancaster." And so when the mayor of LA announces a $1 billion shortfall, when some of these cities are really, really struggling, and they're trying to prepare for the Olympics, and so to have a $1 billion shortfall in their general fund budget and trying to prepare for the Olympics, they're going to need to do something. So it's only a matter of time before some of these other cities in LA County do exactly what we've done to help level the playing field. Any other questions? I'm sorry, Jeff, I keep making Toyota references, but I love Toyotas.
Go ahead.
We haven't had any decrease in sales, so that's good to know. I was a little concerned that, on big ticket items like that.
Yeah. And what's unique about the district tax, as we've explained before, is that if they reside in the city of Lancaster, there's no tax advantage from buying a car anywhere else in California. That money will come here, whether they buy the car in Stockton or they buy it in San Diego. Their zip code determines that tax, and they have to pay it. Mr. Vos.
Sharing these different programs with the community, particularly the homeless mitigations and police services, the forecasted police services that will be implemented soon. You know, you hear, as we go through the community, we hear periodically criticisms, and some of them are not very polite, about, you know, these, particularly the homeless issues. You know, when you're driving around the community, you see the impacts of it as it relates to public perception as well as impacts on individual businesses and individual property owners. You know, you touched on the point, or you didn't touch on the point, but the point on the Supreme Court has made changes and it allows you more flexibility. However, there's still a structured method of having to deal with and solve a homeless population on a specific piece of real estate, on a sidewalk, wherever it is. And people don't understand that. They don't want to hear about the details. They just want it the hell out of here, right?
Yeah, the not in my backyard.
That's a
solution.
technical
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
I don't know how you get the word out so the community really understands the successes and all the work that you've got to do to get a success.
Yeah. Yeah.
That, you know, maybe it doesn't matter that they don't want to know the details. They just want to know the outcome,
Yeah.
you know?
And it comes down to us paying attention, and there's something that the police department's been doing for a few months now, maybe even a year, that I didn't realize they were doing. I went to Starbucks one morning, and I saw a whole team of his staff just walking the boulevard. I was like, what are you guys doing? They were like, we are clearing out the homeless from the boulevard. We do it every morning. And I was like, really? How long have you been doing that? They were like, we've been doing it for months now. And so sometimes by the time I drive in and park and then walk back out to Starbucks, they've already cleared the downtown area of homeless people who had spent the night there. And it's something that simple of just occupying our space, having a presence, occupying the space, and making a significant difference there. And so it's yes, we can pump money into the programming and staff people and buy motorcycles, all those things, but it's also something as simple as having a police chief that actually just is like, why don't we just walk the boulevard and move people out of here? And so it's all of those things that's going to make this community safe. It's all of those things that's going to move us into that area where people will actually start realizing that there is difference and change, and it's not going to happen overnight, like you said. And I think we're definitely moving in the right direction.
You know, I think I'll mimic something that Devin said earlier. You know, my office was on Lancaster Boulevard before redevelopment. So when it was a 4-lane highway, basically, when people would speed down Lancaster Boulevard, no one would slow down for the businesses. And then I watched redevelopment happen. You know, I had a 2nd-story office with an elevator the first day. The elevator was functional. There was someone sleeping in it. You know, and I've watched my girls still go to Sacred Heart, so I come down this area every single day, Monday through Friday, and sometimes I'll watch Rod's team walk the boulevard, you know, politely just kind of shoo away the stuff that's not supposed to be here, and you know, if you're stopping at the Starbucks, you know, the optics, I think that, you know, Rod's everywhere, but I can't wait till the motors are on the street. You know, I've got an 18-year-old daughter that's driving around here. It frightens me to death with the way people drive in this town. And no offense to LA County Sheriff's Department, but they're not patrolling like they did when I was a kid growing up in this community. I mean, I can tell you some of the tickets I got, they're not giving out those tickets anymore. You know, and so with our police department and the money that's been raised by this, it really is gonna, I mean, you talk about making these streets safe. I mean, some of my best clients are body shops, and they love these towns because it's nothing but car accidents all the time. And if there's these, you know, if our police department's out there patrolling the streets, their business is gonna go down because these accidents are stopped by the fact people aren't gonna speed because they're worried about Rod's team there behind him. You know I would, so, you know, it's, you know, and everything else that this money's going towards, I mean, it's, you know, it's so easy to explain. You know, it's so easy to explain. The why. Well, why are we paying more tax? Well, let me show you why. Let me talk about these programs. You know, I mean, you know, you talk about keeping these kids busy, sports, music, you know, it's, the schools do enough from, you know, 8 to 3, but that after school for a couple hours, if they're playing sports. I mean, not every kid's gonna go play professional, be a professional football player or something, or be a musician, but if they're learning those arts, they're learning that sport, they're gonna get educated, they're gonna get out, they're gonna do something good for the community, and that's what this money's going towards. It's pretty clear, so. You know, it's stuff to be excited about, so. I don't know how you get the word out better besides us 4 or 5 to come to these meetings and our reach, but, you know, whatever we can do to help you spread the message, let us know.
Yeah, we do appreciate it. And we do have a new comms PIO who we're working to start crafting some of that messaging for us. And especially as we start getting closer to that January 28 and that January 29 timeframe, we really got to really just be very, very loud about what we've been doing, what we've accomplished. And so that's going to be part of that game plan. When we decided, you know, it was a recommendation to bolster quickly the traffic enforcement of the city because we knew that that was a significant weakness of the sheriff. And as we looked at the statistics over the period of, I think, the last 20 years, we saw a direct correlation between the number of tickets that they are writing and the amount of deaths. So the less tickets they wrote, the more deaths we had. And so it was very, very clear and very easy recommendation for the city manager to go to Rod and say, well, that's our next division. Let's bolster that division. And we started with 4. And after the measure passed, the first recommendation from us to Vice Mayor was, let's double it. Let's get as many of those guys out there as we can. And so that's going to be clear. You're going to see, I don't know, it was kind of weird today. I saw a lot of sheriff trucks out on the street, but you're going to see motorcycles flying down these streets writing tickets real soon, real soon.
Yeah, we used to issue, or I should say the Sheriff's Department used to issue about 28,000 citations a year. Last year, 3,500. We're going to get back to 28,000 a year, if not exceed that.
Actually, Chief, you said one of the first gentlemen that we're hiring, he himself last year at his old department wrote something like 5,000 citations by himself.
Yeah, I'm stealing guys from places that are out there getting it done, so.
All right, unless there's any other questions, I want to get you
Yeah, I
guys
just
home. I know
wanted
you've been here a
to
while.
Piggyback off what Stephen was saying, like, I think, and even you, Chairman Vos, I feel like we all get, in all these things we're talking about, we get similar conversation pieces in the community about, well, why am I being taxed, or programming. There was an event at the Lancaster Library like a couple months ago, and I think it was like some LA County thing, and people were kind of just talking about different issues that they see here in our community and how to address them, and, you know, Captain Barger's office and stuff was there. And there's still like a general consensus about like youth programming. They think their kids have nothing to do. Thankfully, I was there because I'm like, wait a minute, number one, I'm an educator in this valley. Number two, there's tons of things for our kids to do. But, and we talked about this last time as well, Charlize, just about, you know, getting the word out there. And I'm thankful that you guys, you know, are bringing someone in to kind of help craft that messaging and get it out. I think that it would go a long way to work with the community on that, to kind of get messaging out there and how we would go about doing that, because there's so many things to do here. And I just think that, and every time I bring something up, they're like, well, where is this? I didn't hear about it. You know what I mean? And I see like like even our posts, I think I mentioned this last time, like our posts are so much more frequent, they're vibrant, the messaging is great, but it's like your average person isn't following City of Lancaster on Facebook or on Instagram, not now anyway. So it's like, how do we engage our community to let them know all of these things that are actually available to them now, not to mention everything that's coming down the pipeline. I think that's extremely important to be able to do that. So, you know, however we can get, you know, outside of what we've been doing, word of mouth, which is absolutely strong, how can we kind of bolster that to kind of get the word out? Like, you're seeing like how fast like AV Alta is taking off, and it's just been a great thing for the community, and everyone's showing up. That type of energy that they have, that type of, you know, display that they put out to the community. If we could do something like that, like even, you know, whatever, State of the City or how they do AV Edge, we could do something something like that on a smaller scale for the community, to let them know, listen, this is where we have all of this programming going on. And even with this new purchasing the Desert Christian High School, I mean, that's something like, that's gonna be great for the community. And one thing I would say is that it's that after hours programming that's extremely important. I'm so happy you brought that up, because you know how expensive it is to live in Southern California. Even us, we're getting hit with it up here. I can't walk out of Costco without spending $300 on 6 items. And so, you know, I say that to say, like, many parents and middle-class working people are working more than one job. And so they need things for their kids to do in the evening. You know, I know that's probably hard to get staff for things like that, but it's something to consider. You know, if we can get that extra coverage until 6 or 7 or something like that, it would be helpful for parents that are working, so their kids are not out here just doing anything. You know, we need to have things that are not just during hours where, we need to have things after hours, that 3 to 7 type area for parents that are still working and they need that extra time. I think it's extremely important. And this valley, I mean, there's tons of kids that play sports and all of those things. And I think if we had more coverage for them to do things that are enriching, those arts, those different things, it will go a long way to help the residents here. So just something to think about, and maybe things that you guys are already thinking about, but I just, you know, wanted to bring it up.
No, we always appreciate the feedback.
You know, it's interesting that that simple app, which is dynamic, Inform Lancaster, you report anything on that and everything on that, and it gets distributed to the appropriate department, and the problems get solved. It'd be my guess that 95% of this community doesn't use it, maybe more. But it's a simple app. The biggest challenge I see with it is you're unable to take photographs because you're driving, typically, and there's no place to park. So, you know, it works better for the recipient in the city to be able to see a photograph of the issue, whatever it may be. But you read on social media, you know, people complaining about this, that, and the other thing, and, you know, I don't know who monitors social media in the city, but the response ought to be, here's the app, report it here. You know? It's just pretty simple, and the problems get solved. They certainly get addressed very quickly, particularly the dumping issues, the desert dumping, the trash, the homeless issues. There was some big whining one here today about the homeless problem on K and 20th Street West. No, I'm sorry, J and 20th West, where all the U-Haul vehicles are parked and all the rest of it. Vandalism, whatever in the heck it was or is. You know, it's a big eyesore to this community. So, anyway, I'll be quiet. Thank you, George.
All right, thank you.
So the next meeting will be when we're told, in October. Oh, maybe before, I don't know.
I don't think George want to meet with us again.
Yeah. All right, thanks very much, and we're adjourned till